Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today. This is Andy Smith from Rapid, and I want to thank you for joining us today. Some people may be showing up a little bit late, but just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. There is at the bottom of your Zoom meeting a Q&A and chat. Feel free, if you have questions as we're going through the webinar, to key in your questions. We'll try to answer the ones that we think are of general interest, and if we don't answer them or don't get enough time to address them during the webinar, we'll follow up with you by email directly. With that being said, I want to present our speakers today, Greg Stubblefield and Naj Kunath.
All right, this is Greg. I'm going to start off the meeting. So most of you know about the need to take a full physical inventory at least once a year, but what about interim or cycle counts? So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to show you how to take stock of your best sellers, in this case, your top 100 items. So first thing out of the gate, we are going to we need to isolate the items that we want to report on. So we're going to generate a report that isolates those items. Then the next step is to count the items. And then we're going to make a determination of what to correct. And remember, this is non-serialized, so only things that are non-serialized. If you happen to have serialized items. Entering in Counterpoint, and then in this presentation, we're also, after we do all this, we're going to wrap up and give you some more. So from here, I'll pass it to Naj.
Sure, thanks. So this is going to be how we actually generate our top 100 list of bestsellers. So we can do 100, we can do 25, you can do as many as you want. To get to this report, we go to Inventory, Reports, and then this report specifically is called Merchandise Analysis. On the leftmost, you could see that it says Print Top 100 Items. So this is going to break down your top 100 items because we enter that number 100. Like I said, you could do 50 if you want, or you can do 5, as many as you'd like. And we're going to rank it by quantity sold. We say they're highlighted below. In the middle, we actually select the columns that the report is going to show. We're going to see quantity sold, cost on hand, and quantity on hand. The one that we really need is that quantity on hand. These other ones are just going to be kind of more references for you guys to use. And on the rightmost, we see that we're looking for, this is the third tab in the same screen, the merchandise analysis screen. We want to make sure that we're looking for inventory items. Some places have items that are not inventory, like, you know, a bucket of candy, right? You don't inventory all of those. These are going to be items that you have marked as inventory items. And let's go to the next slide. Thank you. And this is going to be the report that you're going to see. So after we run this top 100 report, here's an example for the top 18. This is exactly what the report is going to show. We can see the ranking of the item number, the description, and the rightmost is going to be that quantity on hand. That is going to be our key, a key value here. And so the last report I showed you does not show gridded items. Some people do have gridded items through the system, and in the same location we found the other one under Inventory Reports, there's another report here called Consolidated Grid Report. This report will break down the same style, but we're going to see the gridded items. So we can see black, green, orange, whatever, of the same item. So that's the one caveat to this, is if you use gridded items, you have to run the second report, but 99% of your items are going to be in that first report that I showed.
Yeah, for anybody who is not familiar with gridded items, it's just the way that you can track multiple dimensions on an item within a single item record in Counterpoint, things like different sizes and colors. And so you're tracking those as a gridded item under your upper right-hand corner of your item record. It would say that it's an inventory item, and the tracking method would say gridded instead of normal.
Perfect. And I think Greg's going to take from here.
All right, so once we have printed the report to identify the items, then it's on to the actual count. Now, remember, when we take this inventory report, none of this is locked down, meaning it's simply a report showing your top 100 sellers. So what you want to do, because you're going to be doing this count, you want to make sure that you have time to actually go out and count these right after you print the report. We recommend that you do this outside of business hours when the store is closed, or if not, maybe when the store is not busy, because you want to be able to count very close to the time you actually print the report. So if you can't do it all in one sitting, or all in one setting, I should say, do it in small chunks. Focus on the items, maybe the first 20 or the first 10 even. If you needed to, you could even stretch it out over multiple days. What we're trying to emphasize here is that you want to do this in doable pieces. And then the last point here is, if you do not do the whole thing at once, you want to reprint the report each time before you do the count, so that what you're told to go count has an accurate number to look for. Okay? Now, next slide. And here we have some wonderful penmanship here, if anybody wants to comment on that. Here we have the counted copy of the report. You can see in the far right where somebody has gone down the list of the quantity on hand, and they put in the quantities that they have found during their counts. Okay, next slide.
I should point out too that the data here is demo data, so the numbers are kind of outrageous, but understand that it would reflect your accurate numbers in your store.
Yes. All right. So what we're doing here is we're trying to hone this down so that we don't have to do something with every single line on this report. First out of the gate, we're going to strike through one that has a count that matches the quantity on hand. So quantity matches, we don't have to fool with that one. Go to the next one. The next one is to highlight the ones that do need adjustments, meaning do need to have changes made in the inventory system. And then in our case here, we have yellow for that. And if the discrepancy is really large, you might want to consider doing more of a full count. In fact, in total, when you're doing, let's say, 100 items, the discrepancy list should be small, a small percentage. But if you have more than half, that's probably the point that you want to consider doing a full inventory. And the key here is, if you can, use different color highlighters for different things, meaning in this case, we strike through the ones we don't need to look at. The yellow ones are ones we absolutely need to change. And the green ones are the ones that have the large discrepancies, and we have to figure out why that is. Okay, next slide. Now, when you go into your Counterpoint physical count module, the third step is to enter the items manually. When you go in here, you're going to look up the item number, and then you are going to, when you put that in and search for that item, it's going to give you this little pop-up that says you are about to insert a count transaction for an item not previously frozen. If you proceed, it will freeze this item. That is part of the mechanism, part of the functionality of the process. We're not doing the original freeze, so we're doing individual freezes as we add new items, and items are added one at a time. So click yes when you get this requester. And next slide. And then when you get there, here's where you enter the count, right here in this first box. This is where you enter the count that you came up with on your item. One item at a time, you must enter the count, and then when you're done entering the count, you post it. Click this little button to post. All right. And when you do that post, by the way, that update of your quantity on hand is done in real time. So the inventory quantity on hand will change at the moment you do the post to that new number. All right. And couple things to keep in mind when you're doing your counts. Again, you want to, we recommend that you do this outside of regular business hours, but if that's not practicable, then just understand that do it when the store is not super busy, because you want to count fast. And again, where I say here, quantity on hand at 10 a.m. may be very different from the quantity on hand a couple hours later, especially since you're counting your top 100 sellers. So keep that in mind. So if you're too busy, consider doing it another time. And the people who do end up doing the counts, you need to have a good sense of where all your stock is, meaning I have stock in my warehouse or my stock room, I have stock on the floor. You're gonna have a list in front of you of what to count. So you wanna, if it shows 100, but you can only find 20, then you need to go look for the rest. So keeping these in mind, the downside, if there is one, of doing cycle counts is that you must have intimate knowledge of where your stock is, and you're looking for specific stock, so you got to go find it. Whereas if you were doing a full count, for example, you just count everything you see, everything everywhere. All right, next slide. All right, we talked about the cycle counts, but if you want to, a full count, we do have process and tools available for that. So if you're considering doing a full count, you can contact me at the address shown, and I'll send you lots of detail. We do have an overview PDF of the process as well that I can send to you.
Greg,
Okay.
can you talk to that process?
Yeah, so the process of the scanners is that we have a process, we have software built into the scanners, and we also have a process that runs on your server. The process on your server talks to the cloud, which talks to the scanners to make a scanner smart to what you have in stock, meaning we send the information to the cloud, then we pull the cloud information down to your scanners, and so now you can walk around your shop and your scanners know exactly what it's scanning. You scan a barcode and it knows exactly what it's scanning because we told it what all your stock is. Those are available for rental, or we can give you the information on how to purchase those. We do have a pool of 14 scanners, and they are on a first come first served basis, but we count all year, so as soon as you know you're going to do it, if you need to rent them, put you on the calendar. There you go. So Andy,
yeah, I'm fine. So generally, the concept here is that there's different ways that you can count your inventory and verify your inventory. What we started with is the idea that you can always do a full count. You can also do cycle counts where you identify things that are segmented, maybe you're a whole department, a particular category or subcategory within Counterpoint, and focus it that way. What this presentation really focused on was focusing in on the top 100 items that you're selling based on the quantity sold. You could just as easily do that segmenting of your inventory based on the most profitable items in your store or the items with the highest turn. So understand that there are different ways to approach this, but the idea is if you have limited time and you're just trying to true up some element of your inventory, that you have a way to do that without looking at the entire inventory. And so be creative, and that merchandise analysis report is very effective for helping you find those top 100 based on whichever ranking you want to use. Any questions? I haven't seen any questions or chat come through. We covered things pretty quickly today, so plenty of time if anybody has questions on this or any other subject you might want to bring up today. Feel free to use the Q&A part of Zoom. It's on the very bottom, or it should be on the very bottom of your Zoom window there. And if you don't have them, that's totally fine. What I want to also mention is that we have an upcoming webinar next week, and we're going to be talking about promotions and specials and setting those up in Counterpoint. The skills that would be associated with that part of Counterpoint would also apply to things like contract pricing. So a lot of valuable information and often an underutilized part of the system. if you're interested, an email will come out. Also, for today's webinar, we're making a recording of this. I'll send you out all the attendees and registrants who couldn't attend. You'll get a copy of this, of the presentation, and a link to access the video as soon as it's compiled. If you are having questions or looking to do one of these focused physical counts in your store, certainly feel free to rewatch the webinar recording that you receive. And if you need more help than that, send an email to rapidcares@rapidpos.com. We're happy to set up some time with you one-on-one, some personal consulting to make sure that you can do these accurately and completely. Also, last note, if you have any topics that you want to cover during a future webinar, certainly let us know. We're interested in trying to continue to make our current users get the most out of the system and get the most value out of the system. So we appreciate you attending and really want to make the content of these webinars meaningful for you. So feel free to email us with suggestions. I think the one we got from last week's webinar was to talk about replenishment and the capabilities to replenish your inventory within the system. Thank you everybody for attending. We cut a little short today, but that's good. You have more time to do your day's work. So look forward to seeing you next week. And again, thank you for joining us.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.